Hi everyone, I'm Rachel, and in this tutorial I'll show you how to color a realistic rainbow rose using the Color Therapy app. This tutorial will focus on how to add shading and highlights to a multicolored rose as if it were realistic. You can use any colors you'd like, but for this tutorial I'll be showing you how to make a rainbow rose. So if you'd like to follow along with the same image I'm using, just go under the Classic tab and then select Free, and you'll just scroll down until you find it. Okay, so to get started, I think it's best to work from a reference if you're trying to work in realism. So I found this cool picture of a rainbow rose. So I'll use this to inform me where to place all of the lowlights, the highlights, and the shadows. So let's get started. So the first thing we'll do is choose our colors in the color palette. So I'm going to go under Basic and then select the Vibrant palette and then go to Gradient. And what I want to do is choose several really vibrant and glowy colors. So I really like this light blue to medium blue and purple gradient here. Right next to it is a nice green to yellow gradient. I'll also get this rose pink color and then a blue and then also an orange to pink too. And you can just use any of these are really good colors to make a rainbow rose, so it's up to you. And then I might also go under the Basic palette, and with Basic, I'm going to select a yellow and orange to red gradient, and then also the red. So I have like a full spectrum of rainbow colors. So now all you need to do is just go ahead and start tapping to fill in the petals, and you can do it however you want. And I think it looks good personally if you kind of space them out, but set them up so that they can sort of blend together in a few areas. So it's a little bit more natural. Not that this is going to be a natural looking rose, but it almost could be. It's going to be a fantasy rose. And I'm using a top to bottom gradient, so it'll go from light to dark or dark to light. It doesn't really matter too much though, because we're going to add our own shadows and highlights as well. Okay, so once you're finished adding in the colors the way you like, it's time to add in the highlights and shadows. So let's go into the manual mode. Using the airbrush, let's have the opacity around 75% and the size about 30%. And then let's choose a color for the low lights. So under Basic, go to Dark Shades and make sure it's set to solid now, and then select one of these dark colors, and these are going to be for your low lights. We'll just start with this dark burgundy for right now. And so what you want to do with low lights and shading is you want to use the darkest color possible for your shadows based on that color. So for example, if I'm going to be shading a red color, I want to use the darkest version of that red I can for the shadows. You can use black if you want, but black can tend to flatten out an object. So it works sometimes, but you have to be very limited with it. So now let's go ahead and set coloring inside the lines mode to on. And we're going to start just adding a shadow at the base of the petals. So I'm doing this on a red petal because I have this dark burgundy. It'll also work for the pink too. I'm just using light pressure, just adding a little bit of a shadow at the base. And I'm also going to do that on the purple. And you can see where those lines, those black lines here are coming upward. You can use those as a guide to bring your shadows up just a little bit. Let's kind of go with those lines. So this dark burgundy color for the shadows will work well for purples and any of the warm colors like pink, red, orange, yellow. And then for the cooler colors like the blues and greens, you want to use like a dark blue. So in the Basic palette, again, under Dark Shades, just choose a really dark blue for those shadows, and you'll do the same thing. And as you're going, just remember that the deepest edge is going to be the darkest. So you can add a little more pressure on that very innermost edge, and then just blend it upwards a little bit, but you don't want to cover up all of the color, so just be careful with that. But those edges, those inner edges are going to be very dark. And then you also want to add a slight shadow on the most outer edges of each petal as well. So just a little bit, just a tiny bit, just so that is going to add a little bit of dimension to it. And then now let's add some details by lowering the size to 10%. And then with those same shading colors, you're going to go ahead and follow those guiding lines and just add sort of an outline over those. So from the bottom of each petal, the base going up and out, you're going to draw lines. And then you can also add in your own lines, just going from the outer petals downwards too. And then you just kind of want to blend them a little bit. They're just going halfway down, just here and there, not everywhere, just a few places like where the petals have little bumps in them. Okay, so now it's time to add in our highlights. So what I would do is just go ahead and sample a light color from your picture that you already have. So I'm going to select this really light yellow pale color by just holding down the pencil until I select it. And I'll just use those same settings and start to add in some highlight lines. So just in that same area, I'll just bring it down, just adding in lines, just like how we did before. And this is just going to add some detail. And you can add those highlights in sort of in the middle of the petals. And then for the cooler tones, just select the lightest color from the cool tone. So this blue, we'll use that in the highlights for the darker blue up here and any of the other cool tones. You can also use a pink and add it into the purple for a nice gradient there. Or even add a bright green into a blue. So it's starting to kind of come together, looking more fantasy, but also realistic. And then you can also go into the color palette and just select a basic solid white, and then just raise the size to about 60 to 70%, so it's pretty large. And you just want to add a tiny bit of a glow, and that can be an added highlight into the petals. So just kind of tap it on here and there in a few petals. And then to further add more details, select your darker colors again that you had for your shadows. This time just lower the size all the way down to between 0 and 5%. And then just zoom in and you can add in even more detail lines if you'd like. So you can just follow those black lines there. And then just add in those detail lines using those guiding lines. And here's the finished shaded rainbow rose. You can apply these shading techniques to make other plants, animals, or objects into colorful rainbows. If you'd like to see more tutorials like this, don't forget to subscribe to the Color Therapy YouTube channel so you don't miss any new tutorial videos. Thanks for watching our tutorial. You can get the Color Therapy app for free on the App Store.